Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. Today we're going to be talking about how you guys can win more games as a player. And this isn't a video talking about how to be super competitive, how we're going to just smash our opponents and how to make sure they can never recover and how to play the most powerful strategy. This is more a video talking about if you're that player showing up to game night after game night wondering what's wrong, why the deck's not working, and why you can't grab a win. Hopefully this video is going to help you understand some simple tips to hopefully get that win and some stress testing you can do with your deck before you just jump right into a game. Because again, the goal of playing Magic is not to win every game all the time, right? But I'd be lying if it didn't say to feel bad to take loss after loss and never see your deck do the thing. So hopefully this video can help players like you. But before we get into it, don't forget to click on that whatnot link in the description down below. You guys can get a free $15 whenever you click that, and you guys can also get 10% off all of your Tolarian library proxies whenever you use code DT4D. So super excited to announce I'm now partnering with Baron of Dice to bring your TCG accessories to the next level. These deck boxes are put simply just eye-catching. I'm obsessed with the leather exterior on these. It just makes the art look super unique, and that's what you're looking for whenever you're trying to show off your deck. The playmats are also super high quality. They have a non-slip backing along with hand-stitched edges featuring that eye-popping art drawn by legendary artists in the space like Ron Spencer. They're also giving me a 5% discount code for all of you guys in the audience. Again, thank you Baron of Dice for sponsoring this channel. We're gonna kick it off with tip number 1, stop losing games. If you guys aren't losing, you're winning. Thank you, have a nice day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on your way out. No, but all jokes aside, guys, you need to know your strategy and you need to know how your deck wins the game. This sounds like a very simple thing, but there's a lot of different strategies in Magic, especially in Commander, and you need to understand what your deck needs to do to get that win and what the win looks like, right? Are you trying to cast a bunch of elves, slam Craterhoof Behemoth, and just run away with the game by running over all your opponents? Or are you trying to outvalue your opponents, and when does value turn into a win con? Because I think that's where a lot of people get lost, right? They just put value in their deck, and then after you've drawn your whole deck, maybe there's not even a win con. So it's important that you understand the end goal of the deck and the overall strategy. Super obvious stuff here, but sometimes it just needs to be said. If you shove a ton of value in your deck but no win con, your deck is not going to win, and sometimes that's what preventing you from winning the game. I know, again, super obvious, but we have to start at the obvious things and then slowly start talking about everything else, right? So make sure you guys are playing a win con. Kind of crazy, but again, I've ran into decks and I'm like, okay, well, where's the win con? And you're like, well, I just outvalue my opponents, but outvaluing your opponents is a good idea. But eventually, you need that silver bullet. This card, with this card, paired with this card, will win me the game. Just because this is what happens. So make sure you have your A plus B plus C plan or whatever you're looking at. And it doesn't have to be combo. It can be combat based. But just understand whenever you're looking at a card like Craterhoof Behemoth, you need to make sure your deck has the prerequisites. Can I get 5 to 7 creatures on the battlefield? If the answer is yes, then you're like, okay, then the goal of the deck is to outvalue my opponents, get 7 creatures on the battlefield, then slam a Craterhoof Behemoth. Again, that's simple and very simplified, but it works for different strategies. Combat damage is just going to be the easiest to talk about and the easiest to convey. And with the amount of different strategies in Magic, it's hard to just like blanket, this is for this strategy, this is for that strategy. But we can talk about specific strategies maybe later in other videos. But for now, we're just talking about how we win the game. So that's the very first step. Make sure you understand what your deck is trying to do and make sure you understand the win con. The next thing we need to do before we bring our deck to our playgroup once we understand the strategy and the win con is play the deck against nobody. This is called goldfishing, and it's basically playing against yourself and you're trying to make sure you can kill every single opponent in X amount of turns. If your deck can't win against nobody, it's not going to win against interaction. Now, this style has been kind of shit on in the past. I've had people say it's useless just because, well, there's going to be interactions and you don't know what's going to happen, but that's not true. What you will learn from this is that your deck's core strategy works. You know, if you get your Craterhoof Behemoth on the battlefield with the 7 creatures, that the Craterhoof Behemoth does actually just win you the game. So once you know this wins me the game because I've actually done this before when I was playing against nobody, you will have a solid goal for what you need to do once you are playing against those players. And just having that solid goal and having seen the patterns of the deck before is going to make you way more comfortable on the deck versus just playing it off rip, no preparation against 3 players. You're always going to be at a disadvantage there unless you've been playing Magic for years and you have a vast understanding of a lot of strategies. There's a couple of players where you can just hand them a deck and they will play that deck at a fairly high level just because of their Magic knowledge. This video is not for those players because those players aren't clicking on a video on how to win more, because those players are probably the players that win 80% of their games. And the reason they win 80% of the games is because they've put in the time. They put in the time on multiple different strategies. They know the cards to look out for, and Magic is just one of those games. I like to compare it to chess sometimes, right? If you put a newbie against someone who's been playing chess for years, there's no scenario where that newbie can grab a win. Commander is kind of like that. If you give somebody a deck and everybody else the same power level deck, the guy that's been playing for years, it's going to be very hard for those other players to win, just because those players are going to have a hard time evaluating, 1, what the deck they're playing is trying to do, and 2, what they need to prevent the other player from doing before they win the game. The next point I want to harp on is threat assessment. Getting better at threat assessment is just going to ensure that you're going to win more games. You need to interact with the player before they're the threat, not when they're the threat, because usually by the time they are the threat, they've amassed a ton of resources. They have a giant hand and a giant board state. When the previous turn, all they had was Plant Laza on the battlefield, and they really just casted 1 dinosaur, but that dinosaur turned into another dinosaur, and all you had to do was use your 1 removal spell you had on their commander and it would have been okay. Now, I understand a lot of people don't like removing the commander because it's like, oh, that's what they're trying to do. That wins them the game though. When what they're trying to do is win the game by playing that commander, you have to remove it. These commander decks like Kalia, Yidris, and Plant Laza now need to be removed the second they are cast, because after they untap with untapped mana and they have their commander on the battlefield, you're going to be staring down a terrifying turn. So I will say getting better at threat assessment is kind of hard to do very quickly. It's one of those things you get over the course of a ton of games, but what you can do to help improve your threat assessment is build different strategies and watch commander games of people playing those different strategies and kind of learn how that deck does win the game. That's also going to help you with the previous first tip, right? Once you understand more strategies, you're going to be able to pick up more decks, and once you're able to pick up more decks and understand how that strategy plays, you're just going to win more games with that strategy because you understand all the inner workings and you understand the win con of the deck. It's very easy to hand someone a deck and then they see all the value in the deck, but again, whenever you're destroying creatures, you're ramping and you're drawing a ton of cards, none of those win you the game. It just doesn't. So understanding the strategy and how it wins is first, then you got to become good at threat assessment. And honestly, if you do just want to step back and just start over, maybe you got handed a deck that you don't understand and it's very hard to understand, it's not bad to just go with a simpler strategy. Maybe you play an elf deck that's disgusting and throws all your elves onto the battlefield and slams that Craterhoof Behemoth. Everybody is that player at some point. So step back, go to a creature-based strategy, and just do your thing that you know is going to win you the game. Grab a couple wins while paying attention to what the other players are doing and how they're winning the game, and then you can slowly get more increasingly complex decks and complex strategies. But there's no fault or there's no shame in being that Timmy player that's just trying to smash somebody in the face and put a clock on the game. We always need that player in a play group. The guy there just hitting someone in the face, making sure life totals go down, are the ones that prevent us from having 3-hour commander games. And I like that guy. So in conclusion, you can get better at playing Magic the Gathering and you can win more games by 1, knowing your strategy and making sure you include a win con. Crazy, simple, but it needs to be said because I see people miss this all the time. The next thing we need to do is know our deck and our strategy along with our win con and play it against nobody to ensure that the deck works. Once we know that the strategy is solid and the strategy works against interaction, you can then go and play it against players, and if they interact with you, you know what you need to put in the deck, right? If they interact with you and stop you from winning the game, put in a couple counter spells, and now maybe you can protect your win con, and that's just going to make the deck more consistent and more resilient. And last but not least, if you guys are getting frustrated with the game of Magic because you can't pick up a win, just simplify your deck. Nothing's wrong with going back to the drawing board, sticking with a creature-based strategy, and smashing face. It's worked time after time, and it will continue to work. So hopefully with these tips, it will help you guys improve your gameplay and lead to you winning more games. With that being said, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I'll see you guys in the next one.